Hi, everyone. My name is Valerie Lamp. I am the co-founder of Voters for Voiceless. Thank you for being on our page and helping to spread the word as we continue to advocate for animals. And unfortunately, there's no shortage of needs in that department. Joining me right now is the wonderful Renee Kraft, who is a trapper within the town of Hempstead. She also lives, she's a resident of the town of Hempstead. Joanne Winkhart Cave, who's a senior district leader for the Humane Society and a huge animal lover and advocate and a dear friend. And Diane Madden, another huge animal advocate who really specializes, her expertise is within the township of Hempstead, and no one's probably more well versed in this department than Diane Madden. Okay, so the reason we're doing this is because everyone's really frustrated. When I say everyone, I'm talking about the public, the trappers, the constituents, the animal advocates. Everyone is really fed up with how the town of Hempstead is not even currently addressing their TNR issue. They have shut down the TNR program since the onset of COVID, and everything was shut down in New York. People, I believe, for the most part, were patient and understanding because unprecedented times, global pandemic, everybody understood for a while until things really started reopening. So now we're at a point where you can get your hair done, you can get your nails done, you can go to eat at a restaurant, etc. But they have not reopened this very invaluable TNR humane program, which they can easily do because they have the money, the taxpayer money has funded the program, and they also have the resources, obviously, right there, in-house. It's been there for years. How many years, Diane?
The animal shelter itself has been around for decades. I mean, they only started spending the money on animals in about right around the time we had filed, when I say we, myself and a few other advocates have filed a lawsuit. At that time, the budget was over $7 million. So it's been a long, not only a long fight, but some progress was made, but everything, as you know, Valerie, has really they've just about every program and expert in there have either been bullied out or demolished as far as the programs. And unfortunately, well, fortunately for them, this was one of the only programs that was really running very successfully. I mean, there's always room for improvement, but this one was running well. And as we all know, it's been terminated. And there's been no statement from the town as far as re-implementing the original program, reinstating the program that worked.
Okay, so let me switch it over to Joanne for a minute. Joanne, you have also trapped personally. I remember actually when you discovered that colony in Westbury. Remember that? How many moons ago?
Oceanside?
Westbury, remember across the street from the marble place?
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah. But, so what I want to ask you is, how quickly, just to go over some basics, because some people may not know what TNR is, trap, neuter, release, and how quickly a cat colony can explode. So can you talk a little bit about that? Like, how quickly kittens can get pregnant?
Well, basically, I mean, kittens as young as 6 months old can get pregnant and then just start having litters. And I think a cat can have about 4 litters a year. It is short. So it's quickly, a cat quickly becomes many cats in their time.
Right, and it did happen actually in my backyard. We had a very hard time. We had a trapper who had a difficult time capturing the mother cat, and she had several litters. in our backyard, and the last litter was 4 kittens, and 3 of those kittens were female. So if, we're just trying to paint the picture so people understand how quickly this can become a very large problem. And Renee, I wanted to ask you also, since you're out there trapping all the time, how is the situation, in your opinion, within the town of Hempstead now?
I think it's just really bad. I feel like every call I get to trap is a mom and a litter of kittens. I just did a mama and 4 kittens in Oceanside. I'm doing litters in Westbury. I'm doing one actually tonight in Old Bethpage. I'm just all over the place. Hicksville, I did one last week. There's just litters and litters and litters of kittens everywhere. It's really overwhelming. And I've been talking to some of the rescues because I'm literally writing out checks now to the rescues to help them, towards the cost of taking these kittens in, because there's so many of them. The most recent
what is the cost? So let's take the person in Oceanside, because that is within the town of Hempstead. So here's where I know people are also really frustrated. Here we are during this crazy crisis. No one's blaming anyone for that. But, people are furloughed, people are on unemployment and lost their jobs, businesses are closing. It's really sad. And, when you tell people that this program has already been funded by their tax dollars, but they have to give you money anyway, how much money, let's use that as an example. The Oceanside litter that you just had to trap, how much money did you have to collect from that homeowner?
Well, I have to collect money for the spay and neuter, the low-cost spay and neuter, which is $75. And then I ask them to give a donation if they have kittens that are possibly adoptable, which I did take one of the litter when we did the first eval of them to see if, if they were adoptable, because it gets to the point where they're, out there a little too long. They're on the cusp of 3 to 4 months. And they either are straight TNR and they go back out, or you try to save them. And right now, myself and another lady that I work with, who I help her with, with the cats, because she does the recovery, and I work with her to try to hold on to these, to try to socialize them so we don't have to put them back out. But, like you said, with the cost could be anywhere from $150 to $200, basically, for the rescues to do full vetting to get them adoptable. Right. And I'm just speaking from my experience. I don't want to speak for all rescues, but just from my experience.
Okay. And what have you had people that just said, I can't afford it, or, you
hear that all the time. There's a lot of people that don't want to pay for it at all,
right.
And they expect you to pay for it. I run into that all the time as a trapper. You go to the house and you say to them, okay, well, low cost spay and neuter costs around $75. Their eyes sometimes come out of their head. And,
right.
The ones in the town of Hempstead, I make a point saying, you did pay for this. It is your tax dollars already allocated to this, and now you have to pay again. So I know the homeowner in Oceanside was really angry about it. She did plan on calling Donald Clavin's office, because you have to understand, these people are elderly. She was elderly. She's going to pay for 5 cats now to be spay and neutered.
Wow. And that's very...
Is the animal shelter intaking any kittens at all?
When I called, they said they weren't taking kittens.
That is a $4.5 million animal shelter payroll alone. So my concern is that by all appearances, it looks like they're trying to run a $5.5 million shelter with no animals inside. As it is,
Exactly. And I
you
know
know,
for a fact there is a trapper who brought kittens to the town of Hempstead, and out of 4, 2 were not friendly or adoptable, so they did not TNR them and asked her to come and get them. So they're
well,
actually
what's
pushing
interesting
out
is that,
kittens.
you know, they claim to have these programs, you know, foster care program and bottle feeders. This is the time they should be outreaching for those kitten socializers so they can intake some of these kittens
Absolutely.
and work
They're
with them.
supposed to have a foster network to do precisely that, to socialize these kittens. Instead, they're asking the trapper to take the kittens back and put them back out, not being fixed.
That's ridiculous. And I'll tell Joanne, you know, can you speak a little bit about, again, I'm assuming that some people don't understand or even know about TNR. I know at least one person who works at the town of Hempstead had no idea, because when I called the purchasing department to get a copy of a contract, she asked me which one, and I told her, and I said, you know, it's titled the outsourcing of TNR, and she said to me, what's TNR? So I don't take it for granted that anyone knows what we're talking about, but I mean, some people, they hear about this, oh, and they think, oh, the crazy cat people, blah, 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 blah. Can you just enlighten people a little bit as to why even a non-cat lover should care about this issue?
Well, I mean, cats are domestic animals. They're not wildlife, so they're protected by law. Outdoor cats, there's 2 types. You have feral and you have stray. A stray cat is, you know, has been around humans. It probably was owned in the past. You know, a lot of people move, they leave their cats behind to fend for themselves. So there's some cats that are that can be taken in and adoptable, and those we would refer to as a stray cat. Now, there's a lot of strays that are living outside, and thanks to good Samaritans that have, you know, feed and provide shelters, these cats can still survive outdoors with a little help. And then you have the feral cats that were, in all likelihood, born outside as kittens. They know nothing of socialization. They have, you know, they're afraid of human contact. And those are the cats that have to be trapped. And the TNR stands for trap, neuter, return. You're trapping them, you're taking them to get altered, male or female, and then you are releasing them back into their environment. And the environment is not taking them on a field trip to some godforsaken place they're not used to, because cats, they're accustomed to where they were living. So it's actually cruel to just take them and drop them off someplace else. They're taken back to where they came from. And as I mentioned, I mean, certainly there's way more cats running around that are then there are people that are willing to do the trapping, and of course the available resources to help with such as shelters and or rescue groups that are able to sometimes put together a clinic where they can do a lot of spay and neutering at one time. The problem is pretty much rampant across Long Island, and you know, really anywhere you go, it's always going to be homeless cats, and it's unfortunate. As I said, cats are considered domestic animals. You know, for the most part, New York, less upstate, if I'm wrong, but for the most part, if we go outside of our door, a dog running, we know that that dog belongs to somebody. We don't just have stray dogs running around. I know that's a problem in other states, certain other countries, but we do have a street cat population problem, and certainly if it's a township that has funds to reconcile that and humanely and neuter these should certainly be doing.
Yes. And I just want to mention something. I actually learned a lot through the documentary called Catnip Nation. And you know, the things that actually occur when these cat populations explode and become really out of control is, unfortunately, the people who don't like cats or hate animals. You know, you're going to get a lot of upsetting situations, like you're going to see animals that are going to be murdered. You're going to see them put antifreeze in their food, and you find them hanging from trees. It's really disgusting what people will do. And also, lastly, I just want to mention that the excrements from these colonies, you know, they go into the ground. It's actually not beneficial to the environment. It's just another reason why we, as a society, have chosen to humanely try to contain these populations. So letting this occur and having no alternatives for the people, the trappers and the residents of the town of Hempstead is really not, it's a very hurtful situation. The other thing I want to talk about, I think this is really important, is that the town of Hempstead has partnerships with over 20, they have contracts with over 20 vets within the town of Hempstead, okay? That's basically a veterinarian practice in like every zip code of the town of Hempstead. During this time, and this is my humble opinion, they, I feel, had a lot of tools that they could have exercised and relied on. What they didn't have was the desire to do so. We look at other places across the state and the country, and they found a way to continue these programs and provide invaluable resources. So shelters, as well as veterinary practices, were deemed essential services. So they could have easily called up the 22 or 24 veterinarian relationships that they have contracts with and said, listen, we need to be able to send you animals for TNR if they truly felt they couldn't do it on site anymore. That's an important point. And the other part of it is, I just have to mention, because it really knocked my socks off, I think you guys know this, but I foiled the TNR mobile unit mileage. They've had it since March of 2015. So that's over 5 years, roughly 5.25 years. And this vehicle, the entire purpose for it was to go out into the communities where feral colonies were, and to be able to offer the TNR services. So this way they didn't have to bother the resident with trying to trap the cats, or for them to get a trapper to come to their house. Renee, as a trapper, let me ask you, how much easier would your life be if they had utilized this mobile unit and you could have said, come to this house in Oceanside, I'll trap the cats, you guys do it, I'll put them back. And you didn't have to drive from one end of the island or county to the other.
I think it would have been useful if they could have done coordinated TNR events in different, towns, coming to a town, near you and put out a schedule with dates. That way trappers in the area could coordinate mass trapping for that particular town and then attend that clinic on that particular time and utilize that mobile unit for TNR. I think it could have made the world a difference. I think it was a great idea. It just was never implemented.
Oh, by the way,
What's
mileage,
interesting?
hold on one second, Ty. The mileage on this was 1,811 miles, 0.4. I even had to email for confirmation on that because I couldn't believe it. I thought it was a typo. Anyway, that's just, in my opinion, that's unacceptable. And that van was purchased in 2015. It was brand new, state-of-the-art, expensive. And I'm waiting for that foil to come back, but I'll let you know how much it costs the taxpayers for that state-of-the-art vehicle to sit behind the animal shelter and collect dust. Sorry.
Like, awful.
So when you say, Renee, about, the mobile unit being used to help the community, and, I want to remind everyone that all of these things that we are talking about are
Oh no. Did you freeze or did we all freeze?
I can hear you.
Diane froze.
supervising, and she made this.
Oh, Diane, you got to repeat yourself. You just froze.
Okay, can you hear me
Sorry.
now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah,
So I'll make it quick. That van, along with the TNR program, they came as a result. This was not a result of the goodness of town officials' hearts to start this program, to buy this van. All of these services and the original experts came as settlement talks continued between myself, the other advocates, and the town. So as these programs were being released, the agreement was that this mobile unit was going to be used to help the community, especially low-income community where people had a hard time even putting food on their own plates, let alone feed their pets and spay neuter them. So again, these programs were implemented shortly after 2010 as a result, and a settlement agreements. You know, the fact that they were never really launched to full capacity is another issue, but a very concerning issue. That mobile unit is sitting in the back of an animal shelter on wheels with a little over 1,000 miles after almost 6 years. And it just goes to show you that although they made these statements, they really never launched the programs in their entirety.
It's so frustrating. I want to switch over to a slightly different topic regarding all of our efforts. Okay, because I'm blown away. I remember when I was very naive, just a few short years ago, and I got involved after this protest. And I went to a town board meeting thinking, oh, this is an easy fix, right? And it is mind-boggling to me how difficult it is to get progress. But regarding the fact that, Renee, you have a full-time job and you trap, Diane, you're very active. You have a very lovely family. You have grandchildren that you rightfully so want to spend a lot of time with. Joanne, I don't know how you do everything that you do. Besides being a great animal advocate, she also works. She's also involved with a charity. Like, we have lives, despite what people may think. And when you take the time, even tonight, this is our time away from everything else we could be doing. It's time away from our family. It's time away from our friends. It's time away from if we want to take a nap, whatever. It's time away from our work. And we had such an outpouring on this issue over a month ago. Renee started a petition and generated over 21,500 signatures. Joanne, you wrote an email. Diane, you wrote an email. I wrote an email. We rounded people up. And the lack of response from anyone, in addition to when they elected not to read our emails into the record for the first time in meeting history, right? I mean, what do you guys think of this? I mean, what do we have to do to be heard, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the shelter is really basically a Republican Party ATM machine and employment agency. So, I'm assuming they figure if they don't respond at all, eventually it's going to go away. And you would think they would know better than that because it's only getting bigger. And that is the good news, I think, here. And the other issue is that I do believe that they will reconsider reinstating the original program, because they've already got back, which, a lot of advocates have been in touch with me, that they're very concerned about this RFP for, privatizing that particular portion of the animal shelter, the one part of the animal shelter that was pretty well functioning and, moving ahead. So that's really it. That's it in a nutshell. Whether you like animals or not, even the taxpayers should be concerned about this, because to have $5.5 million tax dollars and to terminate every program at this point is just, the volunteer program is not in place. The foster care program obviously is not in place. And, you know, this very important TNR program where we've lost a lot of time, and these animals will pay for this for years to come.
Joanne, you mentioned that when you send an email elsewhere, I know for myself, like if you foil on the town's website, you get a receipt, and it's also, you get a receipt number. But I mean, what was your expectation when you sent in your email? Did you think it would at least be acknowledged?
I assumed, of course, I would at least get an acknowledgement and thank you for your input. So I didn't even know if they received it because there wasn't even any confirmation of receipt, which is odd because you would always get an acknowledgement.
Right, and as your advocacy, I mean, I think also because of your history with the Humane Society, but I know you have a lot of great relationships with a lot of different elected officials from all over Long Island and in New York. And I mean, is this, in your opinion, is this the way that the town of Hempstead is not getting back to anyone or communicating with anyone? Is this, in your mind, the norm? Or, you know?
Well, certainly, I mean, when you take the time to write, and normally under different circumstances, you know, I would even be appearing in person to go and speak. Unfortunately, because of the situation, that's been taken away. So the only way to have input is to submit your comments and into the so that they will hopefully be read and acknowledged and taken into consideration. Because, you know, at the end of the day, anybody that holds office is there because they're elected to do so, and they're elected to be a voice and represent their constituents. Now, granted, I submitted my letter and I was forthcoming the fact that I'm no longer a resident of town of Hempstead, but I grew up there. My parents are still in the home that I lived in for the first whatever 25, 30 years of my life. And you know, they're still residents there, and this is their tax dollars that are being wasted. So certainly, I think anybody that takes the time should certainly receive an acknowledgement email.
And Renee, I just have to ask you because, I mean, I know that you took your time out of your very busy life and you generated this petition, which was very successful. And in addition to that, you wrote your own email, and then you even were on the news. And, you know, I just want to know from you, like, in your opinion, the fact that you haven't heard back anything, even if they spoke in the aggregate, you know, we received 55 plus emails. We received this petition with over 21,000 signatures. The fact that they haven't said anything, do you think this is good government?
Oh, absolutely not. I'm not even sure what government it is. I mean, we live in a democracy, and this isn't even democracy. There was absolutely no due process. I felt violated as an American. I pay taxes. I have, you know, it's like taxation without representation. Blatant disregard for due process. Doesn't allow us into the meetings through teleconference. Doesn't read our letters into records. Doesn't acknowledge the petition. This is a man who just wants to ignore what's going on and just charge forward with his own agenda, and doesn't want to take into consideration what we the people want.
And I'm really, it's very disturbing. And I'll tell you something else, you know.
I actually find it more disturbing than even getting rid of the TNR services. Just like his reaction to the entire thing is just very disturbing. I'm like, well, you know, himself and the council members should be ashamed of themselves.
Well, you know, and for the record, and I really want to clarify this, I think it's important to highlight the fact that before COVID, it was a different story. And we, again, were very, I think, patient in general as the public, because, you know, we knew that meetings were going to change. They had to. However, the town erected a brand new email address called publicresponse@tohmail.org, specifically so that the public can email, and they give you the deadline when there's a meeting coming up to get your email in by the day before the meeting. And they had been reading those emails for weeks and weeks, each meeting, into the microphone and recorded on the video camera. It's basically a substitute for the people who would have gone to a meeting and because of COVID couldn't. And I find it really off-putting and offensive that they took everyone's email and said they just would print it out and read it on their own time. Well, our emails were not only meant to be for their eyeballs only. If that were the case, we would have just sent them the emails directly to their individual email addresses. One of the most powerful pieces of public comment is that other people can hear what their neighbors and community members are discussing and how they feel about things. And a lot of times that's where momentum is garnered for certain issues. Like Marcia D. Tierra, I forgot her full last name, but Marcia brought to light an issue about the trees and, you know, the massive tree cutting that the town was engaging in, and she was really upset about it. I was unaware of that. I appreciated learning about that. So, you know, at a time where the public has had so much taken away from them just because of this pandemic, you know, you can't go out, you've lost work, you've lost, you know, wedding plans, whatever. And now they took away everyone's voice by doing that. They just took it away and never addressed it. Yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I think they purposely did that because they realized that they had upset a lot of people, and they didn't want to acknowledge that. They just kind of swept it under the rug, because if you read those letters into public record, they have to respond to it, and they don't want to respond to it. They don't want to acknowledge it. They want to keep it quiet, keep it under the rug, so that they can march forward with whatever plans and agendas that they have for the town shelter.
I mean, that is truly, yeah, go ahead. Who's talking? Sorry, go ahead.
So, and from my understanding, Valerie, it wasn't just this one topic. They didn't get any letters at all, correct?
Correct. They got a total, I mean, the vast majority by far was about TNR. Kate Murray said they received 55 plus, about 55 emails, and a handful of 55 on TNR and a handful of other emails on miscellaneous subjects. So we know that Pearl Jacobs, the president of one of the Uniondale Civic Associations, sent in an email, and hers went unread. I know Felix Procacci sent in an email on a separate issue, and that went unread, and so on. But, you know, yeah, they silenced everyone. All right, let me switch gears to the last topic. I'm sorry if I'm talking really quickly. I'm trying to squeeze it all in here, but so the town of Hempstead has decided to put out this RFP, and they're looking to outsource their entire TNR program. Now, this program, I spoke to town officials about this. This contract is valued at, let's say, between $500,000 to $1 million. Okay, that's a big contract. $500,000 to $1 million a year. The town doesn't want this on their budget line any longer. So what I wanted to talk about is, number one, they only got back one response. Okay, one bidder, and I don't care if this is the most perfect place in the world. I personally think that when you're looking to place such a large contract, you need more than one bidder, first of all. I want to emphasize that everyone's first choice here is to reopen the program as it was. It was the best thing the shelter actually had going for itself. Number two, I definitely think, in my humble opinion, this proposal is lacking quite a few things, and we have a lot of reasons to be concerned if it were just to go to contract as is. Diane, I know that you got this as well. Do you want to kick it off with your concerns, or you want me to do it?
Well, I'll talk about, you know, one of the top concerns is the fee structure. You know,
Yeah.
program, the agreement was to really bring in 2 part-time veterinarians specifically to handle TNR, to provide the recovery. And that would be the most cost-effective way to do it. They really didn't follow that to a T, so they have spent a lot more money, nor did they have really proper oversight. A lot of cats were being brought in that are outside the town of Hempstead, and as kind as that may appear, it also set the program back. You know, it was very easy for people to use this program, you know, island-wide. It's a lot easier to use the program and sneak cats in than it is to really fight and battle your town officials to get such a program established. That said, what they're doing here with this fee structure, it looks to me that it would cost them almost 4 times the amount of money to outsource than to do it themselves, paying private veterinarians, 2 part-timers, contracting. You know, the original agreement was to contract this and to dispatch other trappers so that we would make sure that, you know, all of the residents who are paying for this program were getting proper, getting TNR.
You keep freezing. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. You're getting a little choppy. I'm so sorry. I don't know. I think we got it, but yeah. Renee, let me ask you, when you're TNRing, what's the average, I guess, cost when you have to, you know, have the homeowner go out of pocket? What are they paying these days?
Well, low-cost spay and neuter costs $75 unless you're using some kind of, you know, voucher system. Sometimes these nonprofits, rescues, have voucher programs where you can get it for less than that. But of course, if the animal is sick, it needs a covina shot, it has an infection, has some kind of wound, that's all out-of-pocket expense. Whereas, you know, with the town of Hempstead, their veterinarians would address those types of needs. I mean, for instance, I had a cat that I brought in for spay, and it had an hernia, and that was repaired during the spay. If I brought that cat into, you know, a vet now to get spayed, I would get a phone call and be told, you know, this cat has a hernia, to repair it's going to cost X, Y, Z. Do you want to, you know, move forward with that? So it can be very costly. The cats need, you know, sometimes we bring in a female and it's pregnant, and the cost of that spay goes up when there's a pregnancy involved. Go up to $62 at a particular vet that I use. So, you know, it could be very costly. You could spend well over $100, you know, like $135 just on one cat. Now, if you have, like, you know, 5 cats in the yard, a mama and 4 kittens, or, you know, and they don't necessarily have to be tiny kittens. They could be 4 months, 5 months, 6 months old, because we all know they could start reproducing at 4 months. You have to get them spay and neutered. You can't just leave them and say, oh, they're babies. Those babies have more babies.
Right.
So
let me ask you guys a question. Any of you pay your vet $450 an hour?
I don't know anybody who would pay $450 an hour.
Yeah. Well, that's what's on this proposal. $450 an hour is what is on this proposal, specifically for on location at the shelter veterinary services. I'm confused by this because it talks about having a prearranged schedule at the shelter, but for $450 an hour, I'm blown away by that number. I'm actually hoping that's a typo, but if it's a typo, they submitted it and everyone's like freaking out. If you have a vet
That's
who's
completely
part-time,
suspect. That's
yeah.
suspect, and that should be reviewed by the controller's office.
Well, it should be reviewed by the evaluation committee, which they apparently have still yet to
And
assemble.
the oversight to spending the money, which would be the controller.
Right, okay.
Absolutely.
So now, getting back to this proposal, I just want to point out a couple of, Joanne, do you have a vet for $450 an hour?
No, high-priced attorneys, maybe.
You have a plastic surgeon, you
Yeah,
know. So,
Well, we have, I think, a doctor that's been hired since COVID for the town. And please correct me if I'm wrong, Valerie, but I think he's earning $40 an hour.
yeah, a medical
compared
doctor.
to-
Right.
Right.
Dr.
So-
Newbert makes $40 an hour. He's a medical doctor with affiliations at Winthrop and I forgot where else. But this is, again, I'm actually hoping that this is a typo. But in addition to that, you know, the other points of concern here is that in this proposal, I don't see them talking about what are they going to do with the adoptable kittens. What are they going to do with the animals who test positive for FELV and or FIV? Right now, the shelter has 2 segregated rooms. And what are they going to do? Are they just going to euthanize them? What are they going to do with those animals? What are they going to do with the trappers? Right now, they're asking for these trappers to return their traps. Why? Are they not going to work with the trappers? This does not paint a clear picture, this proposal, in terms of the logistics, which are really important. Where's the recovery going to be? Is there not going to be any recovery for the animals? I mean, I take a lot of issues and concerns with this. And financially, I also want to point out that on this proposal, it specifically talks about the insurance policies, which the vendor shall procure and maintain during the term of any agreement. It asks for, and they did provide a copy of their commercial general liability insurance. However, they did not provide a copy of their workers' compensation insurance or proof that it's not required. This place has over 50 employees, okay? Disability benefits insurance or proof of it's not being required to secure, that's not here either. So I am really hoping somebody from the town is listening to this and they're going to see we're paying attention, we're concerned, rightfully so. We're asking that you reopen the TNR. You already have it. You have everything you need. You have the tools, you have the people, you have the trappers, you have the money. There's no reason to not reopen this TNR program.
And on top of that, I can't close without mentioning that, as many people already know, I ran for town supervisor and Don Clavin was my opponent. And during some of those political debates, he publicly, and it was televised, promised to fix the shelter, promised to bring in advocates and address the problems. He has acknowledged the problems, but unfortunately, and on the contrary, you know, the animals had so little at that point to begin with, and he's only taken away our program. He's taken away every program, and he needs to address that. And it's critical for him to understand that regardless, you know, whether he's going to continue to ignore these pleas, he owes it to the animals and he owes it to the taxpayers to keep his political promise and to reinstate this program as it was. And instead of terminating it, make the additional improvements that it needed, make it more cost efficient. There are many ways to do that. But again, you know, this falls on him. These were his political promises, and I have to add that he even took away a liaison. You know, there was a liaison since Santino, and then Gillen, and now him. So instead of keeping his promise, he's removed what little they had. So it is important to, you know, keep contacting him. And Valerie, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about the protest, and Renee and Joanne, because that's also very important to circle back to about raising further awareness.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. I did want to just emphasize the fact that, you know, I don't know when or where it became in vogue to ignore, you know, the public, but I will tell you it's not going over well. We're not just going to, by ignoring us, what you're really doing is you're helping us fuel this fire that we have, and we're going to find additional ways to continue to get the word out. And we are scrutinizing this because it is very important to all of us. So I will mention the protest, and then Renee and Joe, if you have any other things you want to throw in, but we have scheduled a protest. It's called the Helter Shelter Protest. And it's not just because of the TNR program not being reopened. That's part of it. But it's for Tuesday, August 4th at 10:30 a.m. And it's at Town Hall, 1 Washington Street in Hempstead, New York, behind the building by the pool. And, you know, look, the reason we're calling it that is because Don Clavin is on video at the League of Women Voters debate when he was running for office. And he specifically spoke to how the shelter was in dire straits at that point in time, okay? He talked about how it was a war zone, and he talked about how he was determined to fix it. And it was like, you know, a wonderful thing to hear. I want to say we were promised the same thing by his predecessor, and that didn't work out too well for her politically. That said, no one's blaming Supervisor Clavin for the pandemic and for the reactions and, you know, the rules that had to be instated to help keep everyone safe. But as things evolved and things started reopening, you know, we are saying not only was it time to reopen the TNR program, but it's certainly time to communicate with the people who genuinely care and are experts in this world of animal welfare. And he should have collaborated with these people to find a way to help the animals. Anyway, the protest is the following. We want to fully reinstate the TNR program. We want to allow for the volunteers to go back in and be able to walk the dogs. There's no reason they can't do that. Stop silencing the public. That's bigger than any individual issue. That's a First Amendment issue. Fully reopen the shelter, provide full transparency, stop trying to ship out animals. Another attempt with a contract that thankfully nobody responded to. Last couple of times they shipped out dogs, both places got shut down for animal cruelty. And then people get annoyed or offended because we're on top of this proposal and they feel like we're trying to micromanage it or something. And you're damn straight we are, because the town does not have a good track record for making good decisions for the animals. Bring in outside qualified experts, yes please, and work with animal advocates as promised. So again, that's coming up August 4th, 10:30 in the morning at Town Hall. Renee, any closing statements?
Well, the way I feel about it, and, you know, I mean, I don't personally know Donald Clavin. I've never interacted with him before at any length, really. Maybe on occasion once about taxes, but, you know, I think he was very dishonest. he blames COVID for not resuming the TNR program. And the real reason why is that he had every intention of shutting down these services at the shelter, sending out these RFPs, outsourcing all the services to vendors. It was a non-competitive bid as far as I could see from the first RFP that went out. And he's got it laced with just really exorbitant pricing that we're going to be paying to this vet for, I'm not sure what would constitute $450 an hour. I really hope that's a typo, like you said. But I can't get past the fact that how dishonest he's been. He has not been transparent. Government is supposed to be transparent with the people. And I don't have any respect for who's in office right now. I don't think that he is serving the people the way he took his oath to do.
Joanne, any advice for Don Clavin and the town of Hempstead, the board?
Well, the one thing I certainly would, that I took notice of was the fact that they have that beautiful TNR truck, basically that it gives them so much flexibility, and that's something to be coveted by many other towns, to have something like that, to have the ability to go out into the community. And what a wonderful resource that is. The fact that it hasn't been utilized, not even a scratch on the surface of the potential, and it's just sitting unused behind the shelter, is really a travesty. And that's something that the town absolutely should address. And that should be a source of pride, that they have that capability of going out into the neighborhoods and helping their community and their constituents in that regard. And certainly there has to be accountability. So this, taking the time to know what's happening, know what's going on, and anybody that's elected to office has to be accountable to their constituents at the end of the day. That's what it's all about. And $450 for service, as far as I'm concerned, I'm used to, like, services being discounted by those providing them for communities and rescues and shelters, not charging an exorbitant amount of money that really, I don't know how that number is justified.
Thank you. I couldn't agree with you more. And I just want to put my own personal perspective on this. Like, every time that you are going to invest in something, for example, we just put in a pool, right, a few months ago. Best decision ever. But, we put in a pool, we got 4 bids from different contractors and, referrals from people in the neighborhood. That was a $55,000 project. This contract is valued between $500,000 to $1 million a year. It would be, I don't even know what the right word is. Just an absurd act of irresponsible, leadership if they were to just move forward with a contract when you got one bid on such a huge amount of tax dollars. Most importantly, again, they have everything they need at their fingertips, plus the van, plus the vehicle, and they could effectively reopen tomorrow with one phone call from Don Clavin. Diane, any final remarks?
Well, I think, again, most importantly, is to continue to raise the public awareness. Renee, you did a fantastic job. Not only have you done so much for trapping cats and humanely reducing the population as best you can, but the petition, I hope that people continue to share that petition, and this protest is important. And the work that you're doing, Valerie, with Voters for Voiceless is incredible, because it all comes back to who we elect. For any elected position, I know that Joanne mentioned it a few times. We put these people in power, and it is supposed to be to represent us, our needs, And certainly, especially now with the economic collapsing around us, to spend money wisely. And they're not doing that with this contract. And they need to go back and start again and re-implement the original program.
All right, guys, 7:01. I appreciate the extra minute of your time and all of the time that you guys dedicate to the animals. I will sign off with you, and I love you all, and I think this was a really good call, so thank you.
Excellent.
Love
Thank
you
you so
too.
much.
Thanks for having us.
Great job, Val.
Bye.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.